All right, friends, it's time to give you loyal listeners a discount on protein powder. You may or may not know, but I launched my very first protein powder 2 years ago. It's a grass-fed beef isolate with only 3 ingredients: grass-fed beef, either organic cacao or organic vanilla, and organic monk fruit. Now, if you don't want any of the added flavor and sweeteners, you can also just get unflavored. And no matter what flavor you choose, you're getting over 23 grams of protein per scoop, which is going to keep you full and satisfied between meals. I love starting my day with a Fab4 smoothie and breaking my fast with that much protein. It makes a serious difference in my cravings and blood sugar balance the rest of the day, and I've seen it with my clients as well. Now, I never thought I'd own a product company, but when I got pregnant with Sebastian, I realized the majority of protein powders were chemically extracted or enzymatically extracted, and I wanted to use heat and water only. I wanted minimal ingredients because we don't need those emulsifiers, fillers, or added vitamins, minerals, and probiotics. All of those additions increase the chances that it's not going to work for your body, whether it be bloating, digestion issues. I just wanted pure, clean protein to keep you full and satisfied so you could build the most delicious Fab4 smoothie. And I have to say, I'm pretty proud of the flavor. If you take a look at our reviews on Amazon, you'll see 5-star reviews for flavor. And that is key, because if you don't love your Fab4 smoothie and you don't love drinking your protein powder, you're not going to do it. It won't become a habit, and it's consistency that outpaces everything. So if you're here and you're listening and you want to give our protein powder a try, use the code podcast5 for $5 off your order. And let me know if you love it. My favorite ways to apply this protein powder is in my Fab4 smoothie, making freezer fudge, making chocolate milk, making hot chocolate, and throwing the unflavored into all my kids' baked goods. So let me know how you use it. Let me know if you love it, and share this podcast deal with your friends. Happy Friday, friends, and welcome back to the show. It's Friday, which means I'm bringing on a friend. And today, my fabulous friend is Kelsey Murphy. She is a business and life coach who has been called a genius by Marie Forleo for her coaching, spent almost a decade working with Fortune 500s like Twitter and Facebook, and more recently guides 7-figure celebrity entrepreneurs through their business, all while hosting the Whiskey and Work podcast and maintaining a crazy household jam-packed with toddler snacks and late night date nights, and lots of wine. Kelsey's been featured in Forbes, Business Insider, The Huffington Post, Live Strong, and Living Healthy. She also has a course on how to start a podcast, and she's just an awesome human. So let's get to the show. All right, you guys, we're back in. I have an amazing human being, a friend who also I would consider my business / life coach. Kelsey Murphy is on the pod today.
Oh, what's up, Kel?
Should we tell people that we really fell in love with one another at a bachelorette in Las Vegas, or should we keep that under wraps?
No, that's my favorite, because whenever Colin in the very beginning of our relationship would like refer back to you, and I'd be like, he's like, who are you on the phone with? I was like, oh, Kelly LeVeque. And he's like, oh, the one that called you like Pocket Kelsey, like my Pocket Kelsey, like at the bachelorette. And when we met at the wedding, I'm like, yeah, but like, she's like really professional now. So
but you're just like Tinkerbell. You're like my little pixie go-getter. And I just like love you so much. It's funny to think back at, like, not to say our youth, but like just, it's so fun now to be at an age where you're working with friends in business and really leaning on our friends' expertise, especially in the beginning of an entrepreneurial life. I kind of want to take people back, because we obviously met at a mutual of friends, bachelorette, and our little entrepreneurial spirits, we were like a little bit like soul sisters. And then you invited me to be on like a business call. And it was so interesting, because it's like I had started this business and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this like women's entrepreneurial call. And why don't you tell people like why you got that started and what we were even doing? Because it totally changed my business. But I would love for you to kind of just highlight what that was for.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, I totally agree. I feel like when you find kind of like a soul person, like you instantly connect and you're like, I don't know what you're doing or who you are, but we're definitely, we need to be connected in some sort of way. And we would have a lot of like deep life conversations, and just feel really connected. And then when all of a sudden we started kind of running along these paths together of like being entrepreneurs, kind of coming from the corporate world, trying to start something new, trying to kind of like figure out like what's our thing, what's our groove, what's our path. Then I noticed, at least for me during that point in my life, I wanted to be connected with other entrepreneur women that were like-minded, because I think that at first you're in a 9-to-5 and you're trying to be an entrepreneur and you're like, no one's an entrepreneur. And then you're like, oh, you get introduced into the world and you're like, whoa, there are a lot of entrepreneurs. And then you meet a ton of them that have a different personality than you, right? That maybe are a little bit more hustlers or, just building different types of things. And I feel like for you and I, we wanted to build similar businesses. We had a similar like personality. We wanted to create families. Like we cared about like the health and wellness world. Like we had all these similar aspirations. And so for me, I knew I wanted to be surrounded by like-minded people like that. I knew it would help me grow. I knew that I could help them grow. And so I wanted to start this little mastermind. And I was like, I'm going to handpick my people at first, and we're going to come together. And some of them were like you, where you and I had met before, but we had never had these really consistent business conversations. And then there was a few other people that I had met like for a hot second, like once, but I'm like, no, they need to be in this group. Like they've got a special something that we can connect with on. And so I just kind of formed this little group of our little mastermind to help kind of coach through as we grew our businesses. And it's so funny because now, like fast forward so many years, in the future, and that's what what my specialty is, right? Like I bring together women to either create their podcast or create their coaching business or create a scalable online business. And we do it in these epic little groups and masterminds. And I'm able to kind of like coach and navigate us forward in a way that like we did for fun in the beginning. And then it was like, this is what I'm good at. Like, I'm going to do this at a bigger, on a bigger scale.
You're so good at it. Like just identifying. I really just like, it's almost like we were talking about it before we started, but you're a business coach with like a life coaching background. But I think you do a really good job of looking at someone's personality, what their goals are, what their career is, and sort of diagnosing like, is there a disease state here? Are we in a state of health? Like, what's really the future for this? What's the lifespan here? Like, how does it really work? So can you break down when you're working with a client? It's kind of like what you did with all of us on the first call, which I have to give Kelsey credit right now, because we would get on these calls and she'd be like, all right, how are you feeling about your business? And there'd be things that were going really great. It's like, tell us about the great things. Things are going great. Tell us about the things that aren't going so great. And then you would hold us accountable to like doing greater things and fixing the things that weren't so great. And it was so, it's not like you're my mom or we weren't paying each other, but I literally would make changes for those calls to like have a better outcome and to have really like changed my business. When you first start working with clients or bringing these groups together, what are some of like the first steps in helping a person decide if they're on the right path and if it's working for them?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that. I feel like I didn't realize this was going to be such a nostalgic call, but I feel like I'm transporting myself back to those first calls where we had them, and it was so fun because when you start your business, you're so hungry and excited and you want to say yes to as many things possible, right? Because you want to get the experience and the opportunity. And then all of a sudden you have to stop somewhere. You're like, oh, I've said yes to so many things that I am kind of hustling and spreading myself thin, and I'm not getting the momentum in the direction I actually want to go that's going to build the lifestyle that I want. We were chatting about this. I'll have people come to me with 7-figure businesses, but they're so burnt out, right? They've been hustling. And when we take a step back and we look at the lifestyle they actually want, they're like, yeah, I really only want to work 20 hours a week. And I'm like, well, that is not the business we have set up for you, is it? Like that, we got to figure out a way to scale this, but not in a way that's just like throwing products out there, in a a way that still allows you to connect with people deeply. I mean, it's a great example of kind of what you're doing with your courses right now. And what I do with my courses, there are these elements of connective Zoom calls, right? Like, or connective group coaching calls where you still get to see your folks, your people, like you get to see them and you get to connect and answer these questions. It's emotional. It's special. I will have people get off my calls like that. And they're like that was one call out of like 10 that I'm getting. Like, I don't even know. Like, I feel like I owe you millions of dollars. That was like the best ever, and I'm like, I feel the same way. And it's like, that's when you're in your zone. So how do you take that and scale it? Because people that are really good at coaching, or like you, really good at kind of coaching and consulting and taking people through a process or a journey, they have to figure out like, how do I scale this so that I can work less hours, but still love my work and have an impact, and bring in more money, So a lot of times I will take a step back and I will ask someone to define that, right? And that's really tough. So I help them define it. Like, what does that vision look like? And I usually do like a 3-year manifesto plan with them. So I'll say, hey, let's take ourselves 3 years from today. Like today, whatever day this is, you jump 3 years in the future. And I want us to start in the morning, and we're going to envision the most amazing day. Like, what does that life look like in 3 years? And we legit start in the morning. I'm like, what kind of sheets are you on? Like, tell me, what do they feel like? Like, and we're like, oh, we're in a cozy, like goose down comforter, And like, I'm like, what are you saying? Like, are you with a partner? Are you with yourself? And they're like, yeah. And for me, I'm like, I'm rolling over to Colin, like my husband, and I'm saying, we're like telling each other like a fun, dirty joke and like giggling, like it's like, there's laughter and fun and lightness in that, and then I get up and maybe I go make myself my favorite cup of Phil's coffee, and I sit just for 15 minutes and like do a little gratitude or a little meditation, or, or just set my day, my intentions for the day, like just a little bit. And then Kenna Bear wakes up, right? And we like giggle, or we put on some music and we laugh. And in my vision, in my 3-year vision, I have so much time and space in the morning. There's no rushing. It's fun. It's easy. It's light. It feels full of laughter and like, and I'm creating this vision, right? And then I go into my day and like, what does it look like when I'm working with clients? Like, what does lunch look like for me, right? Like maybe I start off in the morning with one of your smoothies, right? And then, I'm going through and I have a couple amazing clients, or I'm building this course that I love so much, or I have a mastermind call with you and some of my favorite humans, and then I have lunch, with a girlfriend. And so I'm building this beautiful work day, and I'm envisioning how much money is coming in. Like, do I have passive income coming in? Do I look at my phone and see, oh, you just had another purchase for this? Like really envisioning how many hours are you working? What are your relationships like? And bringing that to life. And when you see that, all of a sudden, usually the path, the business model, literally the business model you want to create becomes so much more clear. Because if you're creating a business where you're working one-on-one for forever, then maybe that's not going to create that life you want in 3 years. So you can still work one-on-one. You can still collect that information. It's really important in the beginning, often with coaches. But then it's like, let's have some plans to scale that. Like, how are we going to scale that? How do we shift that business model into one that creates this lifestyle where you are taken off at, like 1 p.m. to go to the zoo field trip, or you are, volunteering in the class whenever you want. Like, that is how you build a business model that you love and that's sustainable. And so for me, I take a step back and I start there. So it's really big, and, we're doing visualizations and all this dreamy stuff, but then we get really into the nooks and crannies. And that's where we start like, okay, now that you have this dream, what's the business model we create from that? And that's when I get into like the more, I kind of like take my coaching hat off and put my consulting hat on. And we're like, okay, what does that business model look like? How can we make it run like a well-oiled machine? How can we systematize it? How can we create more space to focus on the stuff you love and like less space on like all that other stuff,
Totally. And you systemized, I remember when we first started, I was just worried about getting my one-on-one clients. And then it was all of a sudden I was writing articles for free for blogs like Mind Body Green and Chalkboard Magazine. And I mean, anyone and everyone that would publish my stuff. And it's like, I didn't have a publicist. This was my way of sharing the stuff I was passionate about, not just on my Instagram handle of 500 followers, but like really just giving away free information. And then it turned around and it was like, okay, it was giving me this like little influx of clients, but then I was getting hundreds of customer servicey type emails of like, well, what's your pricing? And it was like, well, then I do want to book. And then it was this 5 email back and forth about like, how are they going to even schedule with me? And remember in the beginning, you were like, you need canned email responses with all of like the hit list of the things that are never going to change for you. And you need an Acuity scheduling app. And I mean, the technology, I'm just going to credit you. You literally year over year changed my business from being a side hustle, fun passion to something that and I don't even know if you know this number, but my income increased by 500% year over year. And it was literally based on the fact that someone could say like, I want to work with this person. I want to work with Kelly. And I can go into her calendar myself and schedule the exact times I want to work with her. And I want to work with her for the next 6 weeks, or I just want to work with her once and see how that goes. But I cannot tell you like my inability as a full-time employee, as this being a side hustle, to go into my email at like 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night and try to get times back and forth to people, not share the same times, not, then worry about like, did I charge them? Like, how am I charging them? Like, it was just literally like you lined it up and I just had to send people a hyperlink. And I know there's a lot of people using like calendar scheduling apps and things like this, but these are the types of things that like automation, then all of a sudden you have this full schedule of clients, you're seeing people, and then you can think bigger. And then you go, oh my God, I am tired. Like I just saw 9 clients today and I'm exhausted and I'm depleted. Am I a health coach? I'm not being healthy. Like I'm not taking care of myself. I'm taking care of them. I need to change this business. And by the way, even if I work 365 days a year, 8 to 9 clients a day, like, is that even replacing the income that I had at this big corporate job? And if it's not, is it worth it? And you really walk us all through these parts of our businesses and these arcs that scale needed to happen or technology needed to be used. So what are some of your favorite ways to come in and just like be the mechanic on the car for someone's business?
I love it. Let's just talk hacks. Let's go. Okay. Hacks.
I mean, this is what we need. I mean, I know there are people out there who are like, it's a COVID pandemic year and I am thinking about my side hustle. My business is being affected financially, or I want to get out there and do this. Like, where do I start? Or what hacks can I use? Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And I will say, I mean, for you, I remember these conversations and it's so fun because you were so close with your clients. Like they were so important to you. You were like, I'm not going to like create these canned responses. Like I can't just send them a link. Like you wanted this intimate relationship with them. And so that was a priority for you. And like for you looking at your 3-year manifesto, like would have been like, I still love my clients. Like I have a course where the people that I get on and talk to a Zoom, like I freaking love them. Like they are my people, like that's what it would have looked like for you because I know that how passionate you were about that. And so
funny you say that. It's funny you say that. I literally call my first Fab Core Fundamentals Zoom class my OG class.
Oh,
and they'll
I'm not surprised.
DM me and they're like, I'm in your OG class. And I'm like, yeah, you were. Like, I don't know. It just, I need that emotional connection to people. It's just like what makes it worth it for me.
Yeah. And that's who you are. That's who you're always going to be. So I think when you started and you could have that emotional connection easily working one-on-one with people because you were still trying to get the business to come in at the speed in which you wanted it to. You were like, I'm going to write these articles. I can like love up on my one-on-one clients. And then all of a sudden, like your ability to like throw yourself out there to all of these like publications started to work. It was like all of a sudden you started to get the clients coming in. And once you hit that point, I feel like that's a really tough point as an entrepreneur to say, what do I systematize without losing that connection, right? Without losing that intimacy. And so I remember for you, when we were creating this calendar system, when we were talking about it, we were like, let's have two different links. One is for your clients, like, right? Like they can go in, they get to book special things, like their existing clients, like you treat them a little bit differently. Like people that are coming in that you don't know anything about, like maybe they fill something out first, right? Maybe you like give them some content so they're educated first, and you're doing these wonderful, intimate, loving up on them things, right? And they're not just like things you're slapping together. They're your good stuff. You're like, like you were putting together amazing stuff for people that were just interested in like connecting with you. And that system has been tweaked and evolved over time. But I remember being like, how do we create this so you don't lose the intimacy? So those canned responses are still full of your heart and soul and your best stuff, but it's also just saving time for the other humans on that end to know what they're getting into. Like I remember we were talking about like, do we put pricing on your site? Do we not put pricing? Then it was like, well, maybe if we don't put pricing when people reach out to you, we can give them more information and educate them on what an experience with you would be like. Like we went through all these iterations, and I feel like that's what you have to do when you systematize things. You systematize it so that you can simplify and spend more time doing the things that you love in that zone of genius and make more money doing it, right? Like you don't systematize to just like, put canned things together so that you don't have to deal with all the BS. I mean, like the BS are the potential clients that you're going to love, right? So you still create systems that are aligned with who you are and that dream you want to create. But you have to create those systems. Like I'm a very type B, spontaneous, like don't like to have plans. Like, oh my gosh, like do not give me a schedule. It makes me panic when I see that I'm locked into things. I'm like, no. I need more white space on my calendar. Like, I don't think I ever showed up for school on time ever. I was like, I can get it done if I show up 30 minutes late. And they're like, well, maybe not according to the state of California, but you can try. I've always been like that. So this idea of having this structure and these systems in my business felt very foreign in the beginning until I realized that structure actually equals spontaneity, right? Like creating a structured business opens up space to say yes to new things. It opens up space to do the things that you want, to go to the farmer's market on Wednesday in the middle of the afternoon because you've saved yourself 3 hours this week because you created a system, that you love and that's working for you while you sleep. So sometimes that's as simple as, a calendar link and figuring out how to create that. Sometimes it's understanding how to take your methods and knowledge and put it into a different format. Like for you, a book was really important. Or I remember, and when we were doing all your Instagram stuff, or you were figuring out what is this key piece that people are loving that's allowing them to come into my world for Instagram and then also go deeper to learn the science, because the science was always so important to you. You were like, I really just want people to know the science. But when you would throw too much science at people right away, they'd be like, I don't know about that, So I remember like you watching your Instagram account and you posted so many different types of content, from you working out to, different recipes. And then you kept being like, what, people love the smoothies. Like people love the smoothies. And you were like, I mean, I love it all, but I could totally focus on the smoothies if that's what people want, And then you started playing with the smoothie idea and you started building and you started to do the smoothies and then talk a little science. And then you would throw a little more science in there with some emojis and you would soften it up. And all of a sudden you were doing what you wanted, which was educate people on the science to feel empowered about their body, but you were meeting them where they are, right? So you simplified your business to really focus on those smoothies, right? And then you found your platform, and then you built that way, and then you built your book, and now you've built your courses. And I think that taking a step back and understanding different ways that you can simplify to focus, like that, I feel like is so key. When you're looking at your business, we think that we have to do so many things. We have to say yes to everything. And sure, if you're in the beginning and you're still trying to understand what you love and what you want to do, yes, say yes to a lot. Raise your hand, get involved, take action, but like trust your gut then. Like, you know what you love and what you don't love. Like, I know I love podcasting, right? And we always joke, and a couple other friends, I remember when we were first going to meet, they're like, Kelly's the person that coined DMC, right? She's only about deep, meaningful conversation. So just be prepared because she won't talk to you about the weather. And I was like, oh, I'm going to love her, aren't I? You know, like, but I feel like that's like the thing that you have to really remember. Like, there are specific things that you are going to want to do that are going to show up in your life. Your gut's going to tell you, these are the things that you should focus on. So try a bunch and then choose. And for me, it was podcasting because I could have these deep, meaningful conversations and then scale them. Like, I'm not the best public speaker. I'm not gonna lie. I get up on stage, I get really sweaty. I'm like, it drains my energy a bit. You know, like I've done it at like Twitter and Facebook and all these wonderful places, but it drains my energy, right? Like I definitely need to recoup afterwards, where podcasting, because I get to talk to people one-on-one, and I get to go really deep, it gives me energy. So all of a sudden I figured out by testing, I tested public speaking. It's okay. I tested podcasting. That works better for me. And it turns out I have built this audience podcasting with having all of these downloads and people hearing my stories, being vulnerable, you know, talking about my business, talking about my little girls, like talking about everything from like my miscarriage to like how I tripled my income. You know, like people are like, I want to hear all those sides of you. So then when they come to me on my website, they're ready to purchase right away because they've binged listened to me, right? They've already decided, like, you're my person. I want to be with you. And all I had to do was show up and have an intimate conversation in the microphone, and I got to scale it. So figuring that system out for me, like, was mind blowing. It significantly shifted my business, and it sped up my sales cycle. And it connected me with amazing clients that are like dream clients. They're like best friends, right? Like, they're people that would sit with us and have a cup of tea and be like, were we always meant to be best friends? Like, are you my soul sister? And I'd be like, yeah, I don't know how you found us, but like, those are the kind of people you bring in when you find a platform to like really focus on that works for you, you know?
I think finding your platform is really important. I have like really leaned into Instagram. Obviously, it was like my first platform. I thought it was just a photo editing tool. And then I learned that it was actually a social media platform. But it is, people find the way that they connect with their audience. And then as it's grown, it's actually been really interesting because I do really love my courses and the Zoom calls. And I do really love the one-on-one of podcasting, because sometimes it does feel overwhelming when you build a specific platform or you build a specific audience. And just like for you, public speaking feels like, whoa, it's like sometimes the negativity or whatever, like putting yourself out there with that many people is just like intimidating. Even if you've been in the business for a long time, it's like, this feels so safe over here with this like little class of people that I'm hanging out with, or like on a podcast with my friend Kels. Like, it does. I just love the intimacy that's created. And because in intimacy, you can be vulnerable. And when you can be vulnerable, I think people really get to know you. And then when you say, what you're talking about is like, it's shortening your sales cycle. It's interesting when it comes to like business coaching and life coaching. What is your advice for people when it comes to sharing their life?
Yeah. Oh, that's a tricky one. I feel like I was just asked this. I did a whole like masterclass on this in Marie Forleo's B School, because I come in there and I'll mentor all those amazing humans who are building their businesses. And one of the biggest questions was like, okay, let's talk about content. Like, how much content, like how vulnerable am I supposed to be getting here? Like, how much am I supposed to be sharing my life? And I think that the way you structure that and the way you kind of create your system around that, it's going to depend on your personality. Like for some people, I will go through and I will say, create a little bit of guidelines. Like, this is what I do talk about here. This is what I don't talk about here. Right. And set that up front so that you don't have the anxiety every time you're posting, every time you're creating a podcast about like, oh, is this too much or is it not too much? You know, like some people need actual guidelines, and I've written those with people. On the flip side, and you're probably more like me in this sense, I think that if you're going to share something and it's going to be valuable and helping someone move from one place to the other, then for me, there is no off limits when it comes to that. Clearly, like if it has to do with other humans, like my clients or my friends or my husband, there's definitely a level of permission, that needs to be asked there. But I already know my husband, like he appreciates a level of privacy, and I know that level. Like I'm going to talk about him because I'm an oversharer and I want people to know, but there is a level at which I know like, that's like, he appreciates and loves up on a lot of his privacy. Right. So, I already know that. If it's a client, like I will just usually touch base with them. I have really open clients, I think, because I tend to be an open, like kind of book, very transparent person. So my clients tend to be a similar way. So usually if I'm ever going to, share a client story or something, they're all for it. But I think anything that helps people to move forward, helps people to feel less alone, helps people to feel seen and heard, especially in the world right now. I feel like there's nothing more valuable than that, And so for me, I have a podcast that is very much around business and life, but it's like how to build your business based off the lifestyle, that you want. And I remember when we, in between McKenna and our newest little munchkin, Danny, we miscarried in between there. And I remember being like, man, are you going to talk about this? And I, never would normally, like that would probably be in the category of like, I don't know that I would talk about that, but it was affecting me so much, and it was affecting my business, and it was affecting my relationships. And I felt like I could share my perspective and my story. And a lot of my friends had been going through this, not just miscarriage, but their friends going through a miscarriage, right? And they didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to say. They felt like, I want to be there for them, but I just don't know how to be there for them. So I was like, if you could create a podcast, not only sharing your story, and making people feel less alone and less scared, and like this was something that they had to hide, and let them know I'm scared too, but I'm going to share what I went through. And not only that, but I'm going to give, if you have a friend going through this, like I'm going to give you a couple tips of not only what you could do or say to your friend, but where to go get a card. Like, don't get this card, but get this one, right? Like, don't do this thing, but do this, like I felt like that would be valuable. That would help people move forward. And when I look at my podcast and I look at my work, I always envision McKenna, who's 4 right now, I always envision her looking at this in like 30 years, right? Like when she's like 30, 35, and she wants to see what mom was like, and what mom was like when she first had kids, what mom was like when she first started her business. Like that's what I think about when I record these podcasts. And I think of her listening to that, and whatever I say has to be valuable enough for her to be like, wow, that was really cool to hear her say that. And I thought, wow, what if she was going through this? Would this be cool for her to hear this? Would this be helpful? And my gut was just like, yes, it is. Like, this is something I feel called to share. And I'll tell you, that is one of my most commented on, downloaded podcasts out of any of them. Has nothing to do with business at all. But I feel like what it does is it helps to connect humans, and it helps us to feel less alone. It sees and it hears everybody else out there that's suffering with something like that. And I just raise my hand and say, I'm with you. I'm with you. And life is freaking hard, and we will get through this together. And then we will move on, and we will continue to do great things. And like, I feel like if you can, like give that barometer for your content, for what you share, then you can't go wrong. If it's going to be valuable, if it's going to help somebody move forward, if it's going to help somebody feel seen and heard, then put it out there. Put it out there. There's so many humans that need that right now,
Totally. I love your barometer for what to share and what not to share. Like, think about Kenna Bear, just like listening to a podcast that you put out and knowing like, that was really cool of you, Mom. Like that really helped me. Maybe she goes through it. Like I'm a really open book, and Chris is a really closed book.
Yeah.
I mean, we are the most yin yang. I am like all about the skydiving, risk forward, and he is the officer of safety and protection. And, so I know his level, and his level is 100% don't share anything about us personally. Don't put me on your Instagram. And it's it's just him being scared. It's him like not wanting us to share our personal life or for random people to know about anything going on. But I felt the same way about my birth story. I've had a miscarriage too, but like my birth story, I think, especially being in my place and in my space of like wellness and, I don't know, like, just working in Los Angeles and working with people that have home births in a pool and, a completely epidural, pain-free delivery, whatever, not pain-free, but like, they have that experience. And then you have people who have, speaking of little bears.
Is he right there?
I hear him.
Oh,
Chris has got him. Sorry.
Gosh.
I just felt like, and I had to talk to Chris. I was like, I feel like I need to tell this story because it's important that I edited along the way and then things aren't always perfect and you can't always like create and envision, and sometimes taking these ideals that you think you have and trying to like live those out and then being so disappointed on the other end and having, just having like a hard birth story is hard. And I think women need to talk about that. It's not always just like I had this blissful 6-hour delivery at my home and everyone can do it. And yeah, I think everyone should do all the research that they want to do and find what's right for them. But it's okay if someone's ideal is not your ideal. And so that was for me, like sharing that side was important to me, but Chris was comfortable with that because it was like my experience that I was sharing. We've been through so much together as a couple since 2007, from like our parents' health issues to, a lot of other things like financially and in our personal relationship that I'm like ready to share all of it, but at the same time, he's the most important person in my life. And I need to be like protective of that relationship more than anything else. But vulnerability and openness, is just interesting in social media right now because you want to be all of those things for people and you want to help people, but you also want to stay in your lane and you want, it's just like, it's layered, but, I think it brings through like authenticity and realness that connects you with people and makes them want to connect with you more. Which is important.
Yeah. Oh, and I love the way you talk about Chris too, because I think that there's a difference between sharing both of your experiences and sharing your experience. Like that's the other, I feel like, key when you are deciding what you want to post, what you want to talk about, what you feel called to put out into the world is you can talk about your marriage if you want, like from your perspective, right? Like from your experience, like, and recognize that something that intimate is probably going to have a little effect on the other person who is in that partnership, right? It's just like a business partnership, right? If you're going to share what your experiences is in your business partnership, be aware it will affect your partner, but it's okay if you're sharing something from your own experience that you really think is going to help other people feel seen and heard. And usually is the goal of it is positive, right? Even if the experience has been really hard or something that you, it brings you to tears, like being able to share that for you, like sharing that was like, hey, I want you to know that other people go through this. Like, I want you to know it's not all rainbows and sunshine. It does end up wonderful and magical and incredible. But if you are hitting a low and you're having this experience, or you're ashamed of your experience, or you never talked about it because you thought we all had these blissful things, it's like, let me raise my hand and let you know, like, we've all been down. We've all been down. And I'm not just going to say that and then move on to all the shinies. Like, I'm going to give you a story about it. Like, I'm going to give you some details. Like, it is real and it is in my face,
Right. Totally. Well, once someone has their platform and they figure out what they're willing to be vulnerable about and how they're willing to like show up and share and really connect with their audience, how you talk a lot about the zone of genius. Like, how do we know what our zone of genius is? I know a lot of times people try to plan for it and figure it out. Like, how do you help people figure that out?
Yeah, such a good question, because I feel like we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, especially in the beginning when we're building, like, what is my thing? What is my thing? Right. And kind of goes back to like your your example of figuring out smoothies was like a big lead horse for you, right? Like you had the problem of having too many strengths, right? As many entrepreneurs do. Like they have so many strengths and skills and they're like, which one is my lead horse, right? Which one do I run with? And the reality is you don't know that until you test it, right? Like you don't know those things until you test it. You feel how it feels inside for you to do it. You see how easy or how hard it is for you to do it. And you see what the response is from the people you're trying to serve and impact, right? So for me, I always think about this when people are like, yeah, you just got to test it, or like, don't worry about failure, just go out there. I'm like, that's really nice in theory. Like, thank you for that fuzzy advice. I don't know how to do that. Like, I am not built that way. Like that scares me to death. So for me, I create a system. Shocker. Like I have a system for doing this. So I always tell myself, you have to create a new mindset and you have to create benchmarks. So you kind of go soft and then you kind of go hard, right? So my mindset, and this is an example for podcasting, because a lot of people come in and they want to start their podcast and they have this inkling, this tug that they want to start a podcast. But at the same time, they're like, what would I talk about? What would I say? Am I even interesting? And I'm like, girlfriend, you don't know till you try it, right? Like, so let's decide how we're going to try that. So I will tell people, like, tell yourself, like, the mindset is like, I'm going to allow myself to be a beginner at this, and I'm going to like expedite myself to expert. Like I'm going to speed through from beginner to expert as fast as I possibly can so that I know whether I really like this or not. Because the first or second time you do a podcast, as you know, and as I know, when you do it, you have no clue what you're doing. You're like, is this good? I feel like that interview was terrible. Why did I ramble on for so long? Or like, what, is this even valuable to people? Like you don't know till you get through a couple of those beginner stones, right? Like you have to get through those, and they're painful if you do them slow, if you're analyzing them, if you're critiquing them. So I will help people create benchmarks to expedite that beginner process and get to the expert process really quickly. So your mindset, and the mindset is different for everybody. A lot of times a good mindset is like, I have value right now just as I am. Like if you were to turn the microphone on right now, you have so much value to give. And that was hard for me because I was always like, I need a perfect outline. I need to be an expert. I need statistics. And it's like, actually, if you just shared a story about how you left your corporate job, do you know how much value that gives to people? Like, do you know how many people are going to hear that and resonate? Like, you have so much value right now. So for me, that was a big mindset piece for me at a certain point in my career, right? And then you want to go create some benchmarks. Like, okay, so how do I actually move quickly through that? For podcasting, I will tell people, like, why don't you commit to 6 episodes? Like, just do a 6-episode series. Say, I'm just going to do a little series of podcasts, like 6 episodes, and I'm going to teach people how to do something in 6 to 8 episodes, right? Or I am going to focus on how to change careers in 6 episodes, or I'm going to focus on, the Fab Four, in 6 episodes, right? Like you pick a topic and you talk on it for a little podcast series, right? So it's not this end all be all thing. You're not committing to the next 5 years of your life. But if you don't commit to something and do it quickly, then you won't have the information and the data that you need in order to discover, is that my thing? Is podcasting my thing? Is the topic of careers my thing? Is interviewing or doing solo shows my thing? So I think, I always used to tell people, you got to embrace the amateur beginning, right? You got to embrace that amateur beginning. But for a lot of the clients that I work with who are very much like us, like they're super chill, but also very ambitious, they're like, that's great. I will embrace the amateur beginning. Like, cool. But like, what are the actual steps to do that? I would be like, oh, okay. Like, then let's put some benchmarks in place. Like maybe you need to commit to 8 podcast episodes and that's it. So let's bang through 8 podcast episodes you're really excited about that you love. And then let's reevaluate. Let's reflect and reset after those 8. And you'll know whether you love podcasting. You'll know whether you love that topic. You'll get feedback from people. And it will expedite the process so much more quickly than if you're just trying in your head to mentally figure out like, ooh, what's my thing? Is this smart enough? Like, is this title good? Like, how do I communicate what I do? It's like, let's get out there and test it. So it's like finding some benchmarks that you're really comfortable with to test things, to then take a step back and really look at that data to say, did I love that? Was that my zone of genius? Did other people love that? What's the feedback? And often, like with podcasting, because I feel like podcasting is one of the easiest free platforms out there that you can talk about whatever you want. And podcast listeners are so incredible. Like they're these amazing humans that just want to like listen and have conversations with their best friends and they're like AirPods, like if you go out and you create those, you will be shocked at the feedback you get. You will be shocked at how many people will come back and be like, yeah, I loved that one time you were talking about this thing. You'll be like, I don't even remember talking about that, but I'm so glad that was impactful for you. It's the coolest experience. So it's like, just let yourself say yes, test some things out, and then you'll be able to actually have some data to determine what is kind of your zone of genius.
And then when you get into your zone of genius, how do you recommend someone build a plan to make that a sustainable career?
Yeah, I'm going to create you a system is what I'm going to do. No, it's your zone of genius, I think, starts to make everything feel a little bit more fluid, a little bit more effortless. And I say effortless with a big asterisk by it, because I think anytime you're an entrepreneur, effortless is an evolved state, right? Like the second something feels effortless, your little brain is going to be like, but I want more. Okay, like I figured this out. I'll never forget. I have this system, like a whole Trello board, right? All I do is record my podcast, and then I literally move, like I check a box and it like moves this little board over in Trello, and then everyone's notified to like do their thing, and they create all these awesome things, and it works with like this beautiful, well-oiled machine, right? And I remember it took me a little while to build it. It took, to get the kinks out. But my goal was, I just want to show up and record. I just want to talk to people. I want to have these wonderful things happen, but I know I need to share it. I know I need to promote it. I know I need to check all these other boxes, but like, what if I didn't have to reinvent that wheel every time I did, my podcast? So I created the system, tweaked it. Finally, now it's this beautiful, well-oiled machine. And the second it got good, it was like, well, maybe we should do 2 podcasts a week. Well, maybe we should reach out and we should add quote cards to this. Well, maybe, so I think but that's a good sign, right? That means like you've figured something out. It's seamless. Like you're in that zone, and then you can build. And all of a sudden, that's where you really expand your reach, right? That's where you have the time and the space to grow at the speed in which you've always been wanting to grow, So for me, it's really getting clear on like, what does that 3-year life look like? Like what is that lifestyle? Then you build your business model around that. You start testing things out by creating some benchmarks that make that uncomfortable beginning more enjoyable, right? Like that you can speed through that uncomfortable beginning, get the information you need. Cause I'm like, I know I'm there. And that never changes, just so you know. Like the second, and I remember you when you were writing your book, your point of view when you were writing your book, I will never forget. Everyone in our little group was like, yeah, like a book. We should all write books. Like this is a thing. And you were like, yeah, I'm getting this book because it's going to be the first book I write. Like I'm not getting this book because it's the end all be all book. Like I'm going to get this book because it's going to be the first of 10 books I write. And if I don't get through this first book, I will never get to the next one. And it was like, that's the point of view that you want to have on your whole business, right? Like if I don't post these first 5 Instagram posts, I'll never get to the 100th post, which is going to create all the followers or whatever you're craving and you want, so I feel like once you can create those benchmarks for yourself to help you expedite that that learning process, because Lord knows, right? Your first book is a learning process.
Like, oh my God, tell me about it.
Like some of those stories are my favorite. You're just like, oh, the things we'll be doing differently next round.
I mean, I look back and I'm like, I wanted to get this information out to the mass public. I wanted to like give them a toolbox of like how to help themselves clean up their lives and just have a sustainable nutrition plan. But I looked at writing a book as like such a learning experience. And I was like, oh, next time, I'm going to line this up and that up. I'm not going to be my own food stylist for my food shoot. I'm going to bring in someone who's going to help me recipe test. I'm going to, have this type of support and that type of support. And then the next time around, you just learn like 10 new lessons. So
yes,
it's like, yes, you're taking the lessons that you're learning from like one goal to the next, but you're also continuing to learn.
Every single time.
And
every time.
Exactly what you were saying. When it starts to get easier and you have a few more hours in the day, then you get creative and add more to your plate.
Yeah. And it's like the blessing and the curse, right? It's like, that's when you'll start to grow. And that's when like your content and your quality just skyrockets, right? Because you created that space to be able to amplify that, to make it so much better. That's when like everything starts shooting upwards, that trajectory. But you have to go through the beginning process first. You have to learn, and then you have to apply those learnings. And then the things that you learn the next round are on such level 2, 3, and 4. And I think a lot of times we want to be learning on level 4, like the first go round, which is good. Like we're ambitious. We want it. Where it's like, if you could just speed through level 1, just speed through it. Let's do it. Let's hold hands. Let's do it in a way you feel really proud of. Let's get through that, because when you get to that other side, you will be shocked at the human you have become. You will be so proud of yourself for what you've accomplished. And you will look back and be like, wow, I cannot believe I am where I am now. And that I feel like is the key to enjoying entrepreneurship, right? It can be so tough and grueling, but if you can get to that other side, you can find people, like you and like me, find your people, like join that group, grab hands with them, like go through it together. Like that is when I feel like you get to the other side and you're like, oh yes, that was hard, but I'm not only do I feel proud of myself, but I'm going to level 2 now. Like bring on the next book. Like this is going to be easier and more fun, and I'm going to up level. And then you have new learnings there. And then you go into book 3 and book 4. And like, that's when you really, you really have done the things that you always dreamed you wanted to do, Yeah,
I definitely think the learnings happen faster. You iterate faster. You're not as afraid to change directions and to take risks, but they're a little more calculated based on your experience.
Yes.
But yeah, what do you think when it comes to someone like obviously having a mindset, setting some benchmarks, getting through phase 1, sort of, that's like getting over the fears almost, like whether that's putting your podcast out there, putting your Instagram out there, starting your business. What suggestion do you have for entrepreneurs who maybe are stuck, maybe they're stuck in a corporate job and they want to be entrepreneurs, or they have this business idea, or they're in the like schlag of it all? Like, what advice do you have for entrepreneurs when it comes to like staying motivated and continuing to iterate and grow?
I love that because I feel like I can transport myself back there and remember when I was in the 9 to 5 and I knew for so many years this was not my thing, like there were things about it I loved, but kind of as we've talked about before, like this is not my North Star. Like this is not my thing. Like, and feeling just so tired and exhausted, at the end of the day, everyone's like, well, do your side hustle and your passion. And I would get to the end of the day and I'd be like, I am so burnt out and tired. I just want to pour myself a glass of wine. I just want to watch a movie. I just want to reward myself for getting through this really tough day. And especially right now with everything going on with COVID, so many people are feeling that, right? So many people are just like, I don't have 2 minutes to myself, let alone time to dream and think about like what my passion is and start this side hustle and this business, So, I always tell people, like often because we are so ambitious and we're loving up on growth and personal development and all these things, I would take a step back and I would look at 2 things. One, I would look at the amount of time you are allocating to wanting to grow and to start something new, whether it's a business, whether it's get better at your Instagram platform, whether it's start your podcast. Often we're like, I'm going to set aside 2 hours every day and I'm going to go for it. And then you get to the end of the day and you're like, I don't even have 10 minutes for this, right? I don't have the energy and I don't have the time. So I will tell people like, what if you chunked that down to 15 minutes a day? And what if you did it first thing in the morning? Like, that's it. You don't have to do anything else, like at all, like just 15 minutes first thing in the morning. And you don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. Like you don't have to wake up 5 hours early, just 15 minutes earlier, like 15 minutes earlier. And if you think about compound interest and you think about the way that if you were consistent for 7 days in a row, just imagine being consistent for 7 days in a row for 15 minutes on something new you wanted in your life, whether that is a new habit you want to do, whether that is a new project you want to work on, whether that's starting a business and figuring out what kind of coach you want to be. What if you were just consistent for 7 days, for 15 minutes a day? The significance of that, the way that you will feel, the way that your brain will start producing dopamine and it will start to recognize that 15 minutes as like your best 15 minutes of the day, especially when you started out early in the morning, it will change everything. It will be so significant. I feel like, and you don't have to commit to a lot. So like that would be a challenge I would have to anyone listening to this, like 15 minutes a day for like 7 days in a row. Look at that timing, right? Like look at that amount of time you're allocating. And as much as I love you, I'm going to say, don't be so over aggressive, right? Like don't throw yourself into like, don't commit to an hour, because what's going to happen is you may hit it day 1, day 2, day 3, but you will be so disappointed when you don't hit it in day 4 and so disappointed in day 5. And the internal dialogue that will start to spike and happen will go back to old habits. And I'll be like, oh, that's just because you're lazy. Oh, that's just because you never follow through. Oh, that's just because you're not one of those other people that can really go for their goal. Like you have this entire internal dialogue versus if you do something for 15 minutes a day. And there's a ton of research to say 15-minute goals will spike the dopamine like crazy. So if you get a dopamine spike every single day for 7 days, the amount to which you will actually follow through on that habit like skyrockets. Like it is so significant. So that would be like my number one thing I would say is like, maybe take a step back and like look at what your goals are and the time you're allocating to them and chunk it down and see how it feels for 7 days,
I love that so much because I feel like smoothies did become my thing because it was something that someone could do and they could do it in 5 minutes and they could commit to it. And then all of a sudden it had all these cyclical effects with their blood sugar and their hunger control. And we were pulling sugar out of breakfast. We were upping protein. We were like making it fun and easy. Yes. And then they were getting that dopamine hit and they were feeling balanced and they were making better choices. And it was like, I'm not committing to being perfect today. I'm just committing to like starting my day right.
Yes.
Whatever time that is.
Exactly.
8 a.m., 9 a.m. Are you getting it in by 11? Great. Like,
yes,
it's those 100%. It is those little action steps that really can have such a major, like create cyclical change and like synergies in your life for change.
Yes.
I love that one. I love that one.
I love it. Okay. So I have one more I will give you.
Yeah. Give it to me.
Okay. So in the world in which we are living right now, we are trying to do 7 million things, right? Especially women, especially if you have kids or you're trying to work from home and you've got other people in the house. Like we're like, we usually have the excuse of like, oh, I don't have enough time to like go after my passion. And it's like, no, we legit don't have enough time. Like that's no longer just like an excuse where I feel like self-help people can be like, find the time. It's like, no, I really am trying. Like I'm really trying, but I'm actually trying to do multiple full-time jobs, being a full-time parent and a full-time like work all in one day. So I feel like the pressure we are putting on ourselves is a lot right now, and understandably, because we want to be good at these things. Like we want to be good at being a parent. We want to be good at being a friend. We want to be good at, showing up as an employee or in our businesses or serving our clients. Like we want to be good at those things because it affects the way we feel when we go to bed at the end of the day. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I've noticed this about myself, is that when you are someone who always wants to be doing good, like you're a good human, you want to be doing good stuff, you're constantly looking at what could I be doing better? Like, what could I be doing better? And so that internal dialogue by the end of the day, because there's no way anyone's getting through their to-do list by the end of these days, right? Your internal dialogue is only thinking about what could I have done better? What did I miss today? What kind of to-do list do I need to create to catch up tomorrow, right? Like we get to the end of our day and we write our to-do list of like, okay, here's the 7 things I didn't do that I'll move till tomorrow. And our internal dialogue is just saying like, you could do better. You can do better. You can do better, right? Like it's constantly focusing on the things that we're not doing well, that we're not accomplishing, that we're not finishing. And in this world of COVID, when you get to the end of the day, it's usually not just work. It's as a parent too, right? Which is it's the hardest part. I mean, when you look at your work, and your work to-do list just feels overwhelming, you're at least like, let me just go home and hang with my kid or my husband or my friends. And the problem is right now you get home and your kid list of all the things you wanted to do for your kid or the things that you wanted to do as a mom or as a wife or as a friend, like that list doesn't get completed either. And that's when I think it really gets to us. Or we lost our patience with our kid. Or normally, for me, I'm like giggling with McKenna in the morning and I was like rushing through the morning, like just getting her to school on time. And so we get to the end of the day, and we feel awful. We just feel awful. We feel depleted. And our internal dialogue has been telling us all day, all the things that we need to do better, all the things that we need to push to the next day. So the other thing that I would say, which if you did nothing, but you started to retrain your brain and you started to train your brain to be more resilient and to be able to be more resourceful and to celebrate the things that you are getting done at the end of the day instead of just recognizing the things that you need to get done till tomorrow. Because I won't tell people to not make a to-do list. Like do a little brain dump, make a to-do list, all the things you need to do tomorrow. Great. But don't ever do that without then writing down the 10 things you did that day that you're proud of about yourself. Because we don't naturally do that. We don't naturally do that and our brains don't naturally think of that. But if we can retrain our brains to naturally at the end of the day say, you know what? You may have rushed through the morning, but you got your kid to school. Like, good for you. Like, do you know how many people out there are struggling with that? Like, I mean, I would go as small and minute of saying like, you brushed your teeth. You brushed your teeth this morning because that doesn't seem significant. But do you know there are people having a hard time getting out of bed right now? Like there are people that are struggling right now. And so if you are waking up, you are getting out of bed, you are putting on clothes and you are showing up for your kid, you are doing a good job. And you have to remember that, you have to let that sink into your brain. You have to tell yourself that every night because when you do, you'll show up for your kids so much stronger the next day because you'll be like, hey, we're in it. We're doing it, you guys. Versus waking up being like, okay, you can do better. You can do better. You can do better. You want to wake up saying, we're doing a great job, you guys. Like high five for getting out of bed today, high five for brushing you have brushed hair? Amazing. Like I put it in a ponytail, high five, like where normally I'd be like, I've been telling myself I'm going to learn how to French braid for the last 3 months. And look at the other cute kid's hair that is French braid. And instead retraining your brain to be like, I like that pony. It looks awesome. You're rocking it, girl. Get after it. I'm proud of myself for that. Shifting your brain to recognize there are people that are struggling to do that. If you are getting out of bed, you need to celebrate that because you are doing a great job.
Yeah. It is crazy, even in this pandemic, that, you have just, it's polarizing, but it's just like, you can look at some people who are having such a hard time getting out of bed and other people who have taken on all these personal and developmental goals and filled their day even 10 times more than they, their work-life balance is actually worse than it ever was because they're constantly working at their house, constantly being a parent. And you're just like, it's overwhelming for all of us. And I think we're all dealing with it in different ways.
Yeah.
And that's not even accounting for what people are dealing with personally under the layer of what is just happening in our world. So, That's such good advice. I love positivity tracking. Like I love just like writing down the like little things that were like really positive about a day or being in the moment enough to recognize it. Like I get really giddy about that because that is a practice that needs to be practiced to be automatic.
Yes. Yeah. And it's significant. There's so many studies on it. And it's like, if you want to feel more confident, if you want to follow through more, if you want to just be happier and enjoy your day more, are you doing this? Like, are you tracking that? You know, are you recognizing the things that you're doing well? Are you making a list of all of those things at the end of every day? Like I will feel a significant difference for me, the way that I show up for my husband, you know, like the way that I show up for my kid. If I'm like, I got to be doing all these things, I got to be doing better, I'm not showing up for them in a way I want to. But if I'm like, you know what, you did pretty good. Like you did these 5 things. You sent that email off. You've been wanting to send it for about 4 weeks now. You finally hit send. Good job. You know, like if you focus on those things, like you're going to show up happier. You're going to show up more positive. You're going to enjoy your day more. You'll be a better mom, a better human. And you know, like that's where we have to take ownership over our own brain and the way we're showing up in the world and recognize that we can be proactive and intentional about these things versus just reactive to everything that's happening in the world, you know?
Totally. Oh, such good stuff, Kels. I can't even handle it. I can't even handle it. I like want to go back and forward at the same time right now. Because I thought those were such like significant tools for people to start incorporating in their life, like immediately, that I want to just like take a minute to make sure that people have those 2 solid takeaways, that they're doing something for 15 minutes a day for 7 days instead of overcommitting and under delivering and feeling bad about themselves. And then that they are looking at the end of the day and writing down the things that went well, not just thinking about the things that they didn't get to, because we're all not getting to stuff. And I think the common theme there is really being positive. It's like doing something and then being really pumped on it and creating that dopamine hit and feeling good about it and allowing the momentum to keep you going.
Yes. I love that.
So good. So if someone, I think this is like the perfect way to segue because you help people plan their business and figure out their zone of genius.
Yeah.
And I think especially right now, people are all in a place of like, well, how do I start? What can I do? Is that even a viable career? If you're sitting down with someone and all they have to say is, I'm in this corporate job. I've been in this corporate job for 8 years. I hate it. I don't know what I want to do. How can you help me? Where do you start?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a good question. I feel like I do get that a lot. Probably because I think, and you probably do as well, because we share our stories, you know, we share our stories of being in that corporate world. I mean, we both have very successful corporate jobs, you know, like we're like, yeah, this is our jam. I feel very well respected. Like, I feel like I can go to the bars and talk to people about what I do. And it's, you know, it's the thing. It's very cool. You know, I got to talk about working with, you know, Britney Spears and Bono and flying to Paris and doing all these fun things. And it was like, when I came home from Thanksgiving, I was like, I have a cool job to talk about. And then it was like, I mean, it's not fulfilling and I feel like it's sucking the life out of me, but like, I'm not going to talk about that at the cocktail bar. You know, like I don't need to let everybody know that, but eventually it eats at you enough. And I think that eventually I started looking around in my industry for other women, specifically moms who were living the life that I wanted, right? They had the balance, they had the career still, but they also had so much freedom over their schedule. They were also chilling at home with their kids multiple days a week. And I couldn't find that. Like I couldn't find that anywhere in the industry that I was in. Now things are changing and evolving, and there's so much, people are loving up so much more on women and giving them so many more opportunities now to have kids and create and cultivate a different kind of lifestyle. But at the time, there was nothing like that. And I remember just feeling so sad. I was so sad because I always wanted those two worlds. I really wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And I also really wanted to have my own thing. I wanted to like go sip champagne and fly first class for a girls' weekend. Like, can't you do both? Like, can't you like have your thing and be a stay-at-home mom? And everyone kept telling me like, you can have both, but not at the same time. Like you have to either choose your career and then you can be a stay-at-home mom, or you can be a stay-at-home mom and then do your career later. And I was just like, that doesn't seem to work. First of all, like that big gap that you're going to take like is significant. And I also don't want to give up one. Like I want to do both, but I want to do them at a slow pace and a significant pace, but something that feels very enjoyable and peaceful and chill to me. And so that's when I started exploring other humans, right? I started to like dig deep and to be like into the World Wide Web and was like, who out there has figured this system out? And that's when I started to stumble upon like Marie Forleo and all these other folks that were creating online businesses, right? And the online businesses that allowed them that location independence, that allowed them time to figure out like what they were passionate about and how to scale that, right? How to still serve people at that in a different kind of more creative way. And I had never heard about it. And I never knew anything about online business. And it was like, okay, cool. So an online business is what you want to do. Like, what are you going to do though? And I remember stumbling upon life coaching in the States and being like, that's way too woo woo. Like, we're not going to become a life coach. Like, like I cannot go home for Thanksgiving and tell people I'm a life coach. Like, that's just not going to work. And then Colin and I went, we started traveling a little bit and I ended up in London at a free life coaching seminar. And Colin, was like, why? Like, we're in London. Come on. Like, let's go, let's play. Let's go meet up with new friends at the pub. And I was like, I know, I'm just going to go for just this one day, just this one day. Let me just go and check this weird thing out. And I went and I checked it out and I fell in love with the concept and the idea of the human psychology behind life coaching and understanding your goals and values and how that's affecting the way you're showing up in your work and your life and your relationships. And I was just like, why aren't we teaching this in schools? Like, why aren't we giving this to kids? Why aren't we talking about our belief system and what comes from our parents and what we come out of the womb believing and what we develop, belief systems like limiting and furthering and all that. Like, why aren't we talking about those things? At least just giving people a baseline of education around it. Because I felt like if I had known that, I would have loved up on myself a little bit more through like very tumultuous years of, high school and college and coming out. My first years out of college, there was a lot of me telling myself, like, I wish you were different, right? I wish you weren't so emotional. I wish you were more chatty. I wish you, like woke up on time. I wish you weren't such a night owl, right? There's so many things that I wanted to change about myself instead of taking the time to understand why all of those things made me who I was and how to leverage and manage those things to have the life I wanted, right? And as soon as I started working with a life coach, I started to recognize those types of things and my life significantly shifted, right? And I recognized the love that I had for businesses and for creating and while simultaneously connecting with people and helping them. And so that's where like life coaching started to build for me. And then as I built my life coaching business, so many people then were like, okay, we weren't sure about this in the beginning. You said you were going to be some like kooky life coach. And then all of a sudden, now you have this business that seems legit and you get to talk to people about all these really cool things. And we saw you on Forbes and we saw you into Twitter and, and I was like, yeah, it's amazing. And they're like, teach us how. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I started to teach people how to do it. And I didn't recognize the systems I created and my point of view on like, your lifestyle and your business model. I didn't realize that those were unique. I didn't realize that that was my skill and my gift until I started doing it. Right. So it's kind of a long way to a ham sandwich here, but I feel like when you start to feel that tug, like, like if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't think I'm in the right career. You're probably not. And that's okay. Like, it doesn't mean you got to go jump off a cliff right now. I stayed at my job for a very long time, but if something feels slightly off, it is. Like, that is your whole body, your whole internal system telling you there's something else. And I'm not saying there's something else as in quit your job and go find, go become an artist, right? Like, that may not be your path, but the more you ignore that tug, the more you ignore that little intuitive hit, the less you're going to be in touch with it. The more you're going to ask yourself, why don't I know what I'm passionate about? Why don't I have any hobbies? It's because you've been spending so much time shoving this little voice, this little tug to the side saying, oh, I'll get to that later. Or, oh, that's just like, weird or unimportant. It's like, no, that's your whole body telling you that it wants a little something more. And I say a little because all you have to do is acknowledge it and say yes to something small. Like, whatever that is for you, say yes to that 15 minutes in the morning of maybe it's just researching. Like, I don't know, life coaching sounds kind of weird, but kind of cool. Cool. Block off 15 minutes and research that, because that is your intuition saying something about that is interesting, right? Like, something about that. Like, if you're like, I don't know, the health world seems cool, but like, I don't know. That's it. Start looking in it. It doesn't mean you're going to go become a health coach tomorrow, but if you don't take action in these small bite-sized ways, you will never get the data or the information you need as to whether that is the right step or not, right? So it's about listening to those curiosities, listening to those tugs and saying yes to them. It's signing up for that class, even though you're not really sure why. Like, I remember I signed up for it was like a write a tiny book workshop in Portland, Oregon. I just saw it online. It was like $500, which was way out of my price range at the time when I signed up for it. But it was written by this woman, it was hosted by this woman. And I had been reading her stuff for a while and I was super intrigued by her. And something just told me, like, just say yes. Like, you don't know anything else. Like, you're not saying yes to anything else. Like, say yes to this, go for it. And I had no desire to write a book, like none. Like, I didn't even know what I would write about. I didn't even have a business at that point. And it was like, come here and learn how to write your tiny book. And I was like, Colin, I signed us up for something. So I'm going to book some Southwest flights to Portland. And he was like, what? Like, it was like London all over again, And I'm like, I got a little hit that this is something that I'm curious about. Now, that's the thing, is you're curious about it. There's no hit that was like, oh, this is going to further my business. This is the best next decision. Like, oh, this makes so much sense as to why I'm saying yes. It was like, I just feel like this would be really interesting and I want to go try it. And I will tell you that trip was one of the most significant trips that changed not only my life, but the trajectory of my business. It changed my mentorship. Like, this woman became a mentor of mine. I fell in love with her and her work. She's been a significant part of my business. It changed the way that I looked at writing, changed the way that I looked at myself. And also it made me feel confident in myself and just saying yes. Like, if anything, when you start saying yes to things, it makes you feel confident in your ability to make decisions, because that's the toughest part when you stay in a job that you don't love, or you stay in a zone in your business that like, oh, I know I could be doing more, or I know I want to write that book, or I know I'd love to start a podcast, but you're scared, right? And you don't know what that next step looks like, because none of us do. And we're terrified we're going to be stranded on this island of like, I made a big mistake, so we stay. And the problem is when we stay in this like gray area of limbo. And the longer you stay in this gray area of limbo, the more and more your confidence is deteriorated day by day by day. Your confidence just starts slipping away because you lose confidence in yourself. You lose confidence in your ability to be decisive, your ability to prioritize things. And all you have to do in that world of limbo, you don't have to make the big decision of like, this is my job, or this is the next step that I know is the right next step. You just have to say yes. You just have to say, this sounds interesting. I'm going to take some sort of small action on it. And if you watch the momentum that happens, because if you envision you're in this gray, this murky gray area of limbo, and you take this idea of like, I might want to be a life coach. I don't know. It sounds weird, but I might want to. If you take that idea and you pull it out of limbo and you prioritize it, and you just say, you know what, for the next few days, I'm going to explore life coaching. I'm just going to explore it for the next few days. It's like, then all of a sudden you've taken that idea out of the gray, murky world of limbo. You've prioritized it and it will become a yes or a no. Like you will make a decision based off that data. And then all of a sudden you start feeling so confident in yourself for being brave, for making decisions. And that's when you start to get the ripple effect and you'll see it like ripple into like the rest of your life, you know?
I love that so much because that's exactly, that's been exactly my experience. It was just like the little yeses of like, I am really curious about this. I'm going to attend that school's, orientation, or they're like free, open webinar night where I'm going to like learn about what this program looks like. And then it's so much easier to make it a yes or no decision. And you can make 10 decisions and six of them may be like a definite yes. And 4 may be like a definite no, but you've made a decision. And one of these 6 decisions is actually going to let you make another decision and make you feel more confident. And when you start to become decisive, you start to move the needle. You really start to create that momentum in your business. You're not afraid to make decisions. You're not afraid to take risks. They're calculated because you've done them before and they make you feel secure. And they make you feel like, no, this is my sweet spot. I know how this feels. And I feel comfortable enough to make this decision. There are still scary decisions, but it's all just like an accumulation of these very small decisions, actually. They're not really that big when you break them up into exactly what you're doing to see if it works. It's that mindset with that benchmark. It's that 15 minutes. It's that remembering the good stuff so you can say like, no, I made a decision. I felt really good about it. Let's do it again.
Yes.
I love it. I love it because I think that so many times people feel the need to immediately leave their corporate job, to create this amazing business, have their whole business plan. It's all written out. And yes, there is a place where someone's like, I'm going to go create a company. So here's my business plan. I'm going to go raise money on Wall Street to fund it. And here are like, the milestones we're going to reach in the next 18 months. So our investors are happy. And then hopefully we'll sell to X, Y, and Z. Like that is one ball game, right? But for most of us, it's like just trying to figure out what we're really passionate about. And if we already know what we're passionate about, is that actually a viable career?
Yes. Yeah. And will I enjoy doing it? Or am I going to get burnt out doing that too? That's the biggest thing. Or people are always like, well, what if I make a mistake and I leave this great thing and I start this other thing and it's just as much work and I'm just as burnt out and I don't love it. Like, okay, how can we test this then? Like, what are our small, tiny little actionable ways every day for 15 minutes? We can collect more data on this. And then you will feel more confident in answering that question for yourself,
I love it. I want everybody listening to go out there and get curious and spend their 15 minutes figuring out if what they're curious about can be a career and if it is a yes, so that they can create the life they want. Because it's like, to create the life you want, you have to create the business that supports the life you want. So being a business coach with a life coaching background is like sort of this perfect little cocktail that I know has really helped me. And I've iterated a million times in my business. I really did think I would be like seeing 8 clients a day. And now I see maybe 8 clients a week, and it's a completely different feel. Or maybe it's 4 clients a week, but it's like I'm doing that really deep work with those people I really care about. So I'm getting that juicy connection. And then I have the courses, and then you keep elevating, you keep iterating, and you keep making space for the things that are really important in your life.
Yeah. You've done such a good job on that. That's been so fun to watch.
Oh, I tell you, it's like, I can give you so much credit for that. Like just allowing my little brain or supporting my little brain to focus and have my milestones and have my, just the goals really laid out and trying things on for size. It doesn't feel so overwhelming when you're just curious and you're going to try something on. You don't have to buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
So when people are out there and they're thinking about iterating, because they've decided to get curious, what suggestion do you have for people when it comes to that 3-year plan? Like, how often are you revisiting that 3-year plan and checking in with yourself? Or what do you suggest? I want to leave people at the end of this podcast with something really juicy of like, okay, maybe there are entrepreneurs listening to this call that are like, it's been really great, but how do I continue to grow? And how do I continue to make sure that what I'm doing is aligning with my plan. How often should I be checking in?
I love that. I love that. And I do have literally a step-by-step process, not only that I do, but I give to my clients. And if you go to my website on literally right now on the homepage, and hopefully it will still be there when you go, how to plan your business in the way that I just kind of described is up on there. So it will take you through my exact step-by-step plan, but I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. So if you want to, after listening to this podcast, just go jot this down and do this yourself. It's super easy. So you do your 3-year manifesto, and I do like a whole visualization with this. And once you have that beautiful, beautiful dream, it's such a fun, juicy thing to do at first. But I want you to know it does take some time and some mind space, and sometimes it may only be 20 minutes, right? But 20 minutes in the world of COVID is a lot, right? So know that once you create that vision, that's done. Like you just get to revisit that for 5 minutes at a time and tweak it. As you learn things about yourself, as that vision tweaks, you get to go back to it. So I do this probably once every 3 to 4 months. I take a look at my 3-year vision, and I usually have it written in a Google Doc because I like it like living and breathing, right? Like I like to be able to go in there and just like bold things, or like be like, oh, like that's so sweet. You wanted to live in a camper van and now you can't go to New Zealand. Delete, so I have it in this document, and I go and revisit it, and probably truly edit it maybe 3 to 4 months. But what I use it for is my weekly planning. So every Sunday night when I'm planning my week, I reread it, and it only takes me about 5 minutes. But I will tell you, when you reread a vision that you wrote when you were inspired and you were feeling good, you took so much time to figure out what those mornings look like, what's in your bank account, what your clients look like. When you go back and reread that, you are triggering so many things in your brain. You are getting that spike of motivation and inspiration you need to have the wind in your sails to create an epic week of momentum and moving the needle. So I will always tell people, whether you plan on Sunday nights or Monday mornings, whenever you plan at the beginning of your week, go for 5 minutes and just reread that. Notice how you feel. And then you plan your week based around that. I will always tell people, pick about 5 to 7 things that are going to get you closer to that 3-year vision. 5 to 7 things. And plug those into your weekly calendar first. And I'm going to, clearly push for the beginning of the day, maybe the beginning of the week, because Lord knows Wednesday hits and we're like 17 steps behind on our to-do list. So I'm going to say mornings and Mondays tend to be my favorite, but beginning of the week or the mornings, plug those 5 to 7 significant things into your calendar. Because the difference is we tend to build our to-do lists and our days around things that we know we need to get done. Like I'll call them housekeeping items, right? Like, oh, I know I need to build that baby shower invite, right? Like, so I'm going to plug that into this significant golden hour of my day. And then by the time I get to the end, I do not have the energy to go out and pitch myself to be on other podcasts. Like that takes energy and time, and I have to work through my fear. And so, if you're pitching yourself to be on other podcasts, because that's going to help you grow, it's going to build your email list, it's going to build your Instagram, if you know that would be a significant game changer, and that's going to get you to this 3-year vision that all of a sudden has you with 10,000 clients, it's like, well, then that is the first thing I want you to do Monday morning. Like plug that into your calendar, because if not, it will get pushed to the end of the day. It will get pushed to the end of the week. And then you will have gone through a whole week doing laundry, paying bills, running errands, and doing the things that just need to get done to make the trains run. And you will not have completed anything that's going to move the needle towards the business and the life that you want. And that is a significant shift that I feel like I watch people make when we're working together, is really pinpointing, what are you going to feel more proud about in the next few months? Is it really that you've rewritten your about page that you've just spent 8 hours on? Or is it that you've gotten 3 new clients? Like, which one's going to be more significant for you? And when you realize that you just spent so much time, or you're blocking off time in your week to work on your website or your about page because you want it to be just right. And I feel you. I want my about page to be right too. But if you're prioritizing that over getting the 3 clients, then you're not going to have the business you want when you see that dream and it's packed full of clients you adore and love like family, right? So I'm going to tell you Monday morning or Tuesday morning, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on getting those first 3 clients, right? And that's where you shift your entire weekly planning based off this 3-year manifesto.
I love it. I am envisioning myself sitting down with Chris like tonight and being like, let's bust out our like family 3-year manifesto of like from the sheets to the coffee to what the day looks like to what the passive incomes looks like because it's so easy, especially if you're a people pleaser or a yes person or someone who, like we've talked about this in the beginning of my business, I was really scrappy. I did everything. I still do a lot of things. And I remember you multiple times throughout multiple years being like, Kelly, have you hired help? It's not that scary. Other people can help you, but it's not that I'm just super controlling. It's just that feels daunting and that feels like more work to hire someone and to bring someone on. And it is in the beginning, but then the payoff is so much better. So because you have a teammate and you're supported and like you have created a business that is running without you having to run, sprint, be out of breath and like feel drained by your business.
Yes.
So I'm so excited to do this. I think
I can't wait for you and Chris to do it. You have to tell me. I've done this with Colin before and it's the most fun. I swear we always end up in a camper van in New Zealand and we're like, man, how much passive income do we have to have coming in for that? Because we got to build another product.
Yeah, it is true. It is true. But like if you can envision that and you don't think that way, then it's not even in your subconscious to create things to fuel that and make space for that. And it does take time. And that's, it's really interesting because the creativity, we even talked about it, like the creativity of what your business can be and how you can iterate doesn't happen until you have the space and the time to do it. And sometimes you have to systemize to do it. And so the manifesto is just another little system that I'm going to start implementing because I am that person who's like, well, my inbox is full and I'll try to answer this instead of prioritizing the things that actually move the needle. And I will say like the silver lining of COVID for me is like my pregnancy course coming out and just being in the space of knowing that the second child is coming and that this is such important, valuable information that I'm obsessed with right now. And I just want people to have it and no one has access to it. And like, how can I make it available to people? But having the space to do it. And now I'm looking at this going like, I love courses. Like I can give people that like formulaic, easy to understand, make it your own information and really like get rid of the diets out there and give people real science because they can work with that. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be scary, but even just, you don't know that you love something or you hate something until you like get your feet wet, try it on, see if it works for you. And you're proof that coaching clients to do that is exactly what creates this life that they want. So I'm so stoked that you even shared some of your golden nuggets on today's podcast. People are going to freak out and go directly to your webpage to figure out how to build their dream business.
I love it. Well, you, my dear, I just adore you. I adore everything that you do. And I adore the way you do it too, because you are scrappy, man, but you just have this giant freaking heart, right? Where you're like, I'm going to figure out a way to do this. But even if it pains me, I'm going to keep that connection. I'm going to keep that quality. Even just like with your protein, I just remember the conversation over the years of you're like, nope, not going to do it that way. Nope. I'm like, she's got this like level, like, nope, not going to, no, it has to be better, And I love that about you. And I love that you have also now come to this place where you have built a business where you have leveraged the scalability and put yourself on different platforms with your book, with your course. And now it's so fun to enjoy like the fruits of that labor because you started out with just like this idea and just a few followers on Instagram, right? And it's so fun. It's like, I feel like people don't really believe that you started that way. And I'm like, oh, she did, folks. I can remember when you hit 6,000 and we were like, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. Like, and then now here you are. It's so fun.
It's those little decisions. It's those little 15 minutes. It's not giving up on yourself. It's getting curious. It's getting decisive. It's all the things you talked about today. It really it was listening to you for all those years and really just going for it. And I definitely suggest if people don't have a Kelsey, well, definitely try to work with her. But like, if you don't, get together with a group of entrepreneurial friends, because you guys can hold each other accountable, and you can help each other meet those benchmarks. And I think there is just something about that, right? It's those little 15 minutes, it's a little bite size, those little decisive, those decisions you make, and the faster you become decisive and listen to your intuition or make space for it so that you can see what feels right. It gets easier and easier and easier. It's always scary and hard at the beginning.
Yeah. And it's so much more fun when you do it with people. Do it with your friends and make friends and go out and find them and do it with other humans. And it'll just be so much more fun.
Totally. And when in doubt, just make a bunch of money and live in a van in New Zealand. Just kidding.
Now y'all know my manifesto.
I'm just kidding. I love it though. Kelsey, you are a gem. Where can people follow along? Tell them your website, your Instagram, your podcast, your courses, all of it. Drop it.
Yes. You can find everything at kelseymurphy.com. So come on over there. Everything that I talked about with like business planning, I've got a bunch of like freebies on that a whole how to plan your business for free. And then I have a business planning workshop that I actually do with people. So you could do the business planning workshop with me if you actually want to get down into the weeds and create a plan. And then, I've been coaching people through starting their podcast lately, which has been so fun. Oh my goodness. So I have this whole course called Podcast with Soul that I love. So if you want to learn how to start your podcast, you can come check that out. But besides that, like as much as Kelly and I are chatting on here, like I'm a total introvert. So if you find me on Instagram, which is at Kelsey Murphy, come say hello in my DMs, because that is where you will actually probably get a response from me. Just come say hello. And then if you want to hear more, the podcast is called Whiskey and Work, and you can find that anywhere you stream podcasts.
Kelsey's a lot of fun, if you can't tell.
It's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
Well, thank you so much, Kelsey. I love you. I know a lot of people are going to probably go check you out, and I just couldn't be happier because you changed lives.
I love you, Kel. Thank you for having me.
Peace, girlfriend.
Thank you for listening to Be Well by Kelly. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Learn more at BeWellByKelly.com and follow me on Instagram at BeWellByKelly. I would love if you picked up my books, Body Love and Body Love Every Day. They're sold on Amazon and at all major booksellers.